Day 28, and I had a great weekend, just so incredibly relaxing, but mostly my nervous system was just so at peace, because, days like today, I've had many, but when I'm not able to distract myself from thoughts that are taking over, I cannot take in the beauty that's all around me or the pleasure of the present moment. And I think this is everyone, right? When we are very focused on, when our mind is very busy worrying, and when we're very focused on our problems, we cannot take in the present moment. So we're stuck in our mind in the past, or maybe ruminating about some unknown future. And so we're not in the present moment, and we can only take in the beauty of life in the present moment, because we receive the beauty through our sensory, through the sensory information that we receive through our senses, right? So it's only when we can break the thoughts that we can actually plug into to receive the information that's coming at us all the time. Warm sun, or bright colors, or lovely green, or the bird song. None of it is available if we're ruminating in our, and fearful thoughts or worrying thoughts, or if we're stuck in an anxiety. And it's only when our mind is at peace that we can actually enjoy life and receive pleasure, and kind of come into that sense of surrender to the present moment, and just be sort of, be guided through the pleasure and the beauty of the present moment. And I know what I'm talking about, because I lived all of my life. I only realized recently that I was a highly anxious child, and I was a highly anxious, person. And the only way I stayed afloat is trying to control things to go my way. And then when things didn't go my way, when life started veering off a perfect patriarchal linear plan for life, and when around the same time, my 3 daughters were becoming teenagers, and then, things are never the way you thought they would be, or it's just impossible to control. I just, I had a nervous breakdown. I had a crisis. And so, it's taken me these almost 10 years, maybe more than 10 years now, to understand, who I am and what's going on, and why I'm so depressed, and why, even though I did everything that a good girl was supposed to, pretty much on assigned timeline, why am I still not happy? And today I actually was thinking a lot about hope, and what hope is, and at what moments we get hope. Because in these last 10 years, as I was on my journey of awakening and sort of becoming conscious about my life, there were several moments where certain symbols and circumstances led me to hope. And today I see that some of those things didn't work out quite the way I thought, but that sense of hope held me over. In the moments when things were really difficult and really painful and very scary, it were these moments of hope that helped me. And so hope actually comes in moments where hope is attached to our beliefs. For example, so hope is attached to our beliefs, and our beliefs are conditioning often, right? Until we start questioning them. So for example, for women, at least, in my case, I'll speak for myself, I was raised to believe that a woman's happiness is family and children and, being married and all that stuff. And so I thought that if I were to do these take these steps, it'll bring me to happiness. So when I got married, there was hope associated with that. When I couldn't get pregnant, there was the opposite of hope. There was despair. And then part of that despair was because I couldn't be on that path toward happiness that was assigned to me. It felt so abnormal to be a woman without children, at least in the environment in which I was raised. There was so much pressure to have children. It felt like, I felt very abnormal. And I think I already felt abnormal because I was told all of my life that I'm too sensitive, or, there was always something wrong with me. Thankfully to the messages I received from my parents and society in which I was raised. So when I couldn't get pregnant, that possibility of anormality just landed on the very fertile soil of me already feeling that like I don't belong and that I'm not normal. So then finally, when I did get children, when I did get pregnant, it was like, oh, okay, I am normal after all. Now I can be with like all these other normal people. And so what is so tricky about these things is that all of this it's a belief. It's a belief about what makes us happy. It gets conditioned into us through what we observe in our families, the conversations, the social, not social media, because there was no social media then, but I mean like at society at large, from media at large, right? News, stories, movies, songs, all that stuff. And so what happens is that this patriarchal idea of one size fits all formula for happiness, so many of us, great majority of us, are actually, even if we follow all the required steps, happiness often still eludes us because we're so much more than what we're supposed to be in patriarchy, men and women, right? For men, it was also a kind of a very one size fits all formula of what is manly, which denies, I think, a great majority of masculine experience, experience of people who consider themselves, the gender of male gender. And the same thing for women, right? Some women thrive in family and adore children, and some women don't. And I remember as a child, as a young woman, I actually hated babysitting. And then I had 3 children, and of course I love my children, but it was an experience that nobody prepared me for. And so, there's, once again, what I guess what I'm trying to say today is that there is so much hope associated with certain decisions we make in life because we think that they will bring us toward happiness in life. And then we spend our life trying to follow those milestones, follow those assigned, prescribed life journeys, but we don't get to happiness. We don't get, because it doesn't, not all of us want the same things. And so I think, what I observe as suffering within me and what I observe as suffering within other people that I've, hundreds and hundreds of people with whom I've spoken in the last several years, is that when we do all that's required and we're not happy, that causes great suffering, because then we think something is wrong with us, because we were given formula for happiness, except we didn't get happy. And then there is also a lot of suffering from the opposite spectrum, where people somehow cannot satisfy this prescribed formula for happiness, in that they stay unattached to other people longer, like they don't get married at until a particular age. And so every time that they're not satisfying these milestones that they're supposed to meet, that's a lot of suffering too. So we're suffering, it's like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. We're suffering if we hit all the milestones, but happiness still eludes us. And we're suffering if we don't hit these milestones, because we were told for happy life, you need to be doing this at this particular age, etc., etc. Do you see? So it's almost like we can't really win in patriarchal society. We cannot really win, because it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And so another thing that is interesting is that people, for example, who are not following the straight and narrow line, but would have liked to, let's just say women who are not yet married in their, say, mid to late 30s or even early 40s, and they suffer so much from being alone. But, I think that a huge majority of women, if they can only understand that there is nothing wrong with being alone, that being alone is normal, and that what does it even mean to be alone? We're never alone. Very few of us actually live in isolation. We're in relationships all the time. We may not be living with someone, in our space, but we're never alone. So once again, it's not even the truth of the situation, And then I think so many women are so focused on that being alone and the fear of ending up alone, that we're not even able to enjoy the pleasure and joy of being single, that being single allows us. That's another thing that I'm finding. So basically what I am observing is that patriarchal society, patriarchal conditioning didn't really give us many ways to be happy, because we weren't allowed, it's conditioning, right? There wasn't really a force on the outside per se. It's conditioning. It's our own internalized process of having integrated all those critical outside voices and all the messages, and so it became beliefs that feel like the truth, the only truth there is. There isn't much room to be happy, because everybody wants to be what's normal or standard, but so few of us can actually derive joy and happiness from that standard, because the standard is so divorced from reality and so divorced from nature and what's natural for men and women and everyone else. And even men and women, even gender. Today we realize more and more we're all on the spectrum, we're all fluid. So even that, right? Like, what is a man? What is a woman? And what does it mean to behave like a man or to behave like a woman? Like, that is also such a wide spectrum of behavior. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share today. And the reason why I started with, being in the present moment to enjoy life is that because we're so stuck in these the search for unnatural journey, that life has to be this specific journey, we're so focused on satisfying that standard that we're not able to be here for the beauty and pleasure that is always available from life in the present moment. We're very rarely able to relax into the present moment to actually enjoy the life that we already are living, the life that we already have, the abundance that we already have. So this is what a lot of what my work is, both in my own life and for myself and with the clients, is that I help question our beliefs, and I help people see that life is so much bigger than what we were conditioned to believe it is, and so many things that keep us in misery and keep us in frustration and resentment and dissatisfaction are not the truth. We we live as if it's the truth, and therefore so much suffering comes from that. But our beliefs are not the truth. It's just a belief. It's just a thought, a frequently repeated thought, a frequently enforced and reinforced thought. It feels as if it's truth. And if many people around us have the same belief, then it feels like it's the ultimate truth. Well, it's not the truth, because reality is extremely varied, and there is multiple different realities and points of view, and each one of us actually has our own reality anyway. That's why we can never figure out what's in somebody else's head. We barely can figure out what's in our own head half of the time, most of the time, I would say. So yeah, happiness is elusive because we're not in the present moment where pleasure can actually be experienced, and because we're attached to these ideas that are not natural of what makes a good life and what makes a happy life. And that is what each one of us needs to understand for ourselves, and needs to create. We each need to understand what happiness means to us. And very few of us actually dare to create our own formula for happy life, because we are always seeing what everybody else is doing, and we're afraid to be a renegade. We're afraid to not belong. We're afraid to walk to our own drum. But I think it's changing. I really feel that whole tide is changing, and more people are waking up to the fact that our conditioning is just very destructive. It created a lot of distorted ideas that are not true. It created a lot of dysfunction in our relationships with other people, and of course with ourselves. And this is what needs to be repaired. So yeah, that's what came out today. And I'll see you tomorrow.